Hayes had 72 hours to claim the farm or lose everything. The pack of abandoned military dogs guarding it had been waiting 1,095 days for someone to come back. Neither could survive alone. Both had been betrayed by the same people. Rain hammered the cracked windshield of Hayes Caldwell's truck, blurring the outline of the farmhouse rising from the overgrown fields. The letter from the lawyer sat on the passenger seat, its edges curled and saw from where he'd folded and unfolded it, searching for a catch. He never expected to inherit anything, least of all a piece of land in the middle of nowhere. He cut the engine. For a moment, he just listened to the rain, the tick of the cooling motor, and the distant rumble of thunder. The farm looked like a place time had abandoned, a patchwork of wild grass, sagging fences, and a porch that leaned as if exhausted by waiting. Hayes's hand hovered over the door handle, nerves buzzing. He'd face worse, he told himself. But something about this place, this silence, made his heart pound like it used to before midnight patrol. He stepped out, mud squelched under his boots, sucking at his heels as he trudged toward the gate. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and something else, dog, unmistakable and sharp. Every instinct screamed he was being watched. He paused at the splintered gate, scanning the porch. That's when he saw the first set of eyes, reflective, alert, unblinking, floating just above the weeds. Then another pair, and another, a low whine cut through the rain. Hayes froze, pulse quickening. The dogs didn't bark or charge. They simply watched, as if weighing his worth. Their coats were matted, their bodies lean but not broken. Each wore a battered collar, tags clinking with the unmistakable sound of military issue. Hayes took a slow breath. "At ease," he said softly, the old command slipping out before he could stop it. The largest shepherd sat, tail thumping once against the porch. One by one, the others followed. It was a silent greeting, but also a test. Hayes realized then, this wasn't just about a farm or an inheritance. It was about trust, something he'd lost in the sand and dust overseas, and something these dogs had been denied for 3 years. He stepped forward, boots heavy with mud and memory, knowing the next 72 hours would decide not just his future, but theirs. The front door hung crooked on its hinges, swollen from years of rain. Hayes pushed it open, and the shepherd, the one who'd sat first, followed him inside without hesitation. The others remained on the porch, a living perimeter. Hayes paused, letting the musty air settle. The house was a shell. Empty frames on the walls. A clock stopped at 2:17, dust motes swirling in the gloom. He knelt, studying the dog's scar muzzle and the way he moved with purpose despite the limp in his rear leg. "You're the alpha," Hayes murmured. "What's your name, soldier?" The dog's tag was half buried in mud and fur. Hayes gently brushed it clean. The tag read, Hobbs. Hobbs looked up at him, eyes dark and steady. Hayes saw pain there, old pain, the kind that never really heals. He reached out, and Hobbs pressed his head into Hayes' palm. The contact was brief but electric, a silent exchange of trust and sorrow. Thunder cracked. Hayes flinched, memories flashing behind his eyes. A night in Kandahar, a lost patrol, the sound of rain on canvas and the taste of fear. He shook it off, scanning the room. On the mantel, a faded photo in a cracked frame caught his eye. A man in uniform, surrounded by dogs. Hobbs was there, younger, unscarred. Hayes moved deeper into the house. Every step echoed. He found a battered trunk near the hearth. Inside, a military journal, its pages warped by moisture. The first entry was clear, the handwriting neat and precise. If you're reading this, you know what it means to wait. These dogs, they only understand loyalty. Don't let them down. Hayes' throat tightened. He flipped through the pages, lists of routines, feeding schedules, training notes, and then, toward the end, a desperate scrawl. They promised to come back. We waited. Days turned to weeks. I couldn't leave them. I won't. A floorboard creaked behind him. Hobbs stood alert, ears pricked. Hayes tensed. The silence was thick, broken only by the rain and the soft, rhythmic thump of Hobbs' tail. Hayes followed the dog's gaze to a door at the end of the hall, locked, but something inside was moving. A faint scratching, then a low whimper. He tried the handle. Stuck. Hobbs whined. pressing his nose to the gap beneath the door. Hayes scanned the frame, found a ring of old keys on a nail by the stairs, and tried them one by one. The fourth key turned with a reluctant click. The door swung open, revealing a small, windowless room. The smell hit him first: wet fur, old straw, and the sharp tang of fear. In the corner, a smaller dog cowered, ribs stark beneath patchy fur. Its eyes were wild, but when Hobbs stepped forward, the pup's tail beat against the floor in a frantic rhythm. Hayes knelt, speaking low and gentle. "It's okay. You're safe now." Hobbs licked the pup's face, and the smaller dog crept forward, nose twitching. Hayes offered his hand, palm up, and waited. The pup sniffed, then pressed its head into his hand. Trembling, Hayes scooped the dog into his arms. It weighed almost nothing. He carried it into the main room, Hobbs at his side, and wrapped it in an old blanket. The rest of the pack watched from the doorway, silent sentinels. He sat on the floor, the pup curled in his lap. Hobbs pressed close and let the weight of the moment settle. The farm was broken, the dogs were broken, and maybe he was too. But in that quiet, rain-soaked room, surrounded by creatures who understood loss and loyalty better than most humans ever would, Hayes felt the first flicker of hope. A sound outside, a car engine, far off, then gone. Hayes stiffened. The dog's ears twitched, but they didn't bark. Not yet. The clock on the mantel ticked once, then fell silent. Hayes looked at Hobbs. "We're in this together now," he whispered. "I won't leave you behind." The storm raged on, but inside, a new promise had been made. The storm outside faded to a steady drizzle, but inside the farmhouse, a different kind of storm churned. One made of memories and the uneasy truce between man and beast. Hayes lingered on the threshold of the dim hallway, the little rescued pup still bundled in a blanket nearby. Hobbs, the alpha, waited patiently, his steady gaze an invitation and a challenge all at once. Hayes took a breath and followed Hobbs into the shadows. The old shepherd moved with quiet authority, nose low, tail swishing in the dust. Each step was deliberate, as if he remembered every creak and groan of the floorboards. The rest of the pack kept their distance, watching through smudged windows or peering around door frames, their eyes shining in the gloom. Hayes felt their presence like a pressure at his back, never threatening, but never quite trusting either. They turned left at the end of the hall. Hobbs paused beside a faded photograph tacked crookedly to the wall. Hayes squinted in the half-light. The photo showed a line of soldiers kneeling in the sand, dogs at their sides. He recognized a haunted look in their eyes. It mirrored his own, the one he saw in the bathroom mirror on sleepless nights. Hobbs nudged the frame with his nose, as if reminding Hayes that he, too, was once part of a pack. The house revealed itself in layers. Hobbs led Hayes into a cramped pantry, where old cans were stacked in neat rows, labels faded but orderly. In a corner, beneath a pile of burlap sacks, Hayes found a battered dog tag stamped with an unfamiliar name, Ranger. He ran his thumb over the letters, wondering about the dog who wore it, and what promises had been broken here. They moved on, the silence broken only by the soft scrape of claws on wood. In the den, Hayes found a military journal again, left open on the arm of a sagging chair. He settled beside Hobbs, flipping through the pages by the light of a single flickering bulb. June 14th. They said we'd be picked up by the end of the week. Dogs are restless, but I promised I'd wait with them. I owe them that much. July 3rd. No word. Supplies running low. Dogs watch the road every night. I think they still believe someone's coming. August 10th. I can't leave. Not after everything. If you find this, take care of them. They're not just soldiers. They're family. Hayes' throat tightened. The words echoed his own guilt. The men he couldn't save, the friends he left behind. He looked at Hobbs, who watched him with quiet understanding, as if he, too, carried the weight of unfinished business. Hayes turned the page and found something new. A yellowed envelope, brittle with age, tucked between the last entries. His name was scrawled on the front in a shaky hand. Heart pounding, he slid a finger beneath the flap and unfolded the letter. Hayes, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it. I'm sorry. I wanted to explain, but I ran out of time. They told me help was coming. They lied. I couldn't leave the dogs. They're the only ones who never gave up on me. I hope you understand. There's more to this place than you know. Don't trust the ones who left us behind. Take care of them. Take care of yourself. Jay. Hayes closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. Betrayal. Abandonment. The ache of loyalty repaid with silence. He looked at Hobbs, who had settled at his feet, eyes half closed but ears alert. Hayes reached down, burying his fingers in the dog's rough fur. For a moment, the house felt less empty. Night fell heavy and thick, the rain tapering to a whisper against the windows. Shadows stretched down the hallway, swallowing the corners of each room. Hayes moved through the house with Hobbs at his side, checking doors and windows, feeling the weight of the past pressing in with every step. The rest of the pack trailed him from a distance, their shapes flickering in and out of view like ghosts. He tried to sleep on the worn couch in the living room. The pup curled against his chest, and Hobbs sprawled on the rug below. The creaks and sighs of the old farmhouse kept him half awake. Pipes settling, wind in the eaves, the distant click of a clock that hadn't worked in years. Hayes couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, not just by the dogs, but by the memories that haunted every inch of this place. Sometime after midnight, he woke with a start. The room was cold, the air heavy with the scent of rain and old secrets. The pup was gone from his arms. He sat up, heart pounding. Hobbs' spot on the rug was empty. Hayes stumbled to his feet, pulse racing. The front door stood ajar, rain blowing in. Muddy paw prints trailed across the threshold, vanishing into the darkness beyond. Hayes' voice caught in his throat. Hobbs. Only silence answered, a silence thick with worry and the echo of old promises. Hayes grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and plunged into the night. Rain stung his face, cold and relentless. The beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the muddy trail of paw prints leading away from the house. His boots sank into the soft earth with each step. But he didn't slow down. Somewhere out there, Hobbs was alone, and Hayes had made a promise. Hobbs. His voice was swallowed by the wind. Behind him, the farmhouse glowed faintly, and he could see the silhouettes of the other dogs gathered on the porch, watching. They didn't follow. Not yet. This was between Hayes and the Alpha, a test he hadn't known he'd signed up for. The trail led him across the overgrown fields, past collapsed fencing and rusted equipment half buried in weeds. His mind raced with memories he'd tried to bury. Another night, another storm, another time he'd been too late. The sand and dust of Kandahar mixed with the rain and mud of this forgotten farm. He'd lost men because he hesitated. He wouldn't lose Hobbs the same way. Then Hayes heard it, a low, urgent bark cutting through the storm. He broke into a run, flashlight bouncing wildly. The sound came from an old shed at the edge of the property, its roof sagging under years of neglect. The door hung open, banging in the wind. Hayes ducked inside, sweeping the light across the interior. There, in the corner beneath a collapsed beam, was Hobbs. But he wasn't alone. Pressed against his side was another dog, smaller, younger, a Belgian Malinois with a torn ear and eyes wide with pain and fear. Hobbs looked up at Hayes, and in that moment, Hayes understood. The Alpha hadn't abandoned him. He'd gone to protect one of his own. Easy, boy. I've got you both. Hayes knelt in the mud and debris, assessing the situation. The Malinois whimpered as Hayes gently examined the injured paw. A rusted nail had pierced the pad, deep but clean. Hayes pulled off his jacket, tearing a strip from his shirt to wrap the wound. His hands shook, not from cold, but from the weight of being trusted again. Hobbs watched every movement, his body tense but calm, as if evaluating Hayes' every decision. When Hayes finished bandaging the paw, the younger dog licked his hand, a small gesture that cracked something open in Hayes' chest. You've been taking care of them all this time, haven't you? Hayes whispered to Hobbs. The Alpha's tail thumped once against the dirt floor. Hayes understood now. These dogs weren't just survivors. They were a family, bound by loyalty when the world had given them every reason to give up. He scooped the injured Malinois into his arms. The dog was heavier than the pup from earlier, but Hayes held firm. Hobbs led the way back through the storm, moving slower now, checking over his shoulder to make sure Hayes kept pace. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the wind still howled through the fields. As they approached the farmhouse, the rest of the pack emerged from the porch, forming a loose circle around Hayes and the injured dog. For the first time, they didn't keep their distance. One by one, they sniffed the Malinois, then turned their attention to Hayes. A German shepherd with a graying muzzle pressed her nose to his leg. A younger mutt with mismatched eyes sat at his feet. They were accepting him, not as a stranger, but as part of the pack. Hayes carried the Malinois inside and laid him gently on a pile of blankets near the fireplace. The little pup from earlier wriggled free and curled up beside the injured dog, offering warmth and comfort. Hobbs settled nearby, his watchful eyes never leaving Hayes. Hayes collapsed into the old chair, exhaustion washing over him. He reached for the journal again, flipping to a page he'd skipped earlier. Tucked between the entries was a folded piece of paper. A list of names, some crossed out, some circled. His heart stopped when he saw his own name near the bottom, circled in red ink. Beside it, a single note in the same shaky handwriting. "He'll come when it matters most." Hayes stared at the words, his pulse pounding in his ears. How had the previous owner known? Why had he been chosen? The question swirled, but one thing was clear. This wasn't random. He'd been brought here for a reason, by fate, by guilt, or by the ghosts of promises left unkept. Outside, the storm finally broke. Moonlight spilled to the cracked windows, casting long shadows across the room. Hayes looked at the dogs. Hobbs, the pup, the injured Malinois, and the others now resting in the doorway. They'd waited 1,095 days for someone to come back. And now, against all odds, he was here. He reached down, running his hand along Hobbs' scarred head. "I won't let you down," he whispered. "Not this time." The alpha's eyes closed, and for the first time in 3 years, the farmhouse felt like home. But as Hayes drifted towards sleep, a single thought nagged at him. Who left that list? And why was my name on it? Morning light broke through the farmhouse windows, pale and tentative, as if testing whether it was welcome. Hayes woke to the sound of birds and the soft breathing of dogs scattered around the room. Hobbs lay at his feet, the injured Malinois, whom Hayes had started calling Ranger after the dog tag, rested by the fireplace, and the little pup was curled against his leg. The rest of the pack had claimed their own corners, no longer shadows in doorways, but presences with weight and purpose. Hayes stood, stretching the stiffness from his back. 48 hours left. The lawyer's deadline hung over him like a storm cloud, but for the first time since arriving, Hayes felt something other than dread. He felt needed. He started with the fence line. The posts were rotted, wires sagging or snapped entirely. Hobbs followed him outside, and soon the others joined, keeping a respectful distance at first, then gradually closing the gap. As Hayes hammered new posts into the soft earth, the German shepherd with the graying muzzle, Sage, he'd named her, sat nearby, watching with intelligent eyes. When he paused to wipe sweat from his brow, she brought him a stick, dropping it at his feet with a hopeful wag. Hayes laughed, the sound surprising even himself. "You want to play?" He tossed the stick, and Sage bounded after with the enthusiasm of a puppy, her age forgotten in the joy of the moment. The other dogs perked up, tails wagging. It was a small thing, but it cracked open something in Hayes' chest, a reminder that healing didn't always look like silence and solemnity. Sometimes it looked like a game of fetch in an overgrown field. By afternoon, the farm was beginning to breathe again. Hayes had cleared debris from the porch, patched the worst of the roof leaks, and started organizing the chaos inside. The dogs revealed themselves in small, tender ways. The mutt with mismatched eyes, Hayes called him Patch, had a habit of stealing tools and hiding them under the porch, only to sheepishly return them when caught. Ranger, despite his injury, insisted on carrying small items in his mouth, as if proving his worth. Scout followed Hayes everywhere, tiny paws patterned behind him like an echo. Inside, Hayes returned to the journal, spreading the pages across the kitchen table. He read with new eyes, piecing together the timeline. The previous owner, Jay, the letter had said, had been part of a military K-9 unit. The dogs had been promised relocation after their service, but if funding was cut, the program dissolved. Jay had refused to abandon them, staying on the farm even as his health failed. Hayes flipped to the list of names again. Most were crossed out, transferred, adopted, or worse. But his name, circled in red, sat at the bottom with that haunting note. He'll come when it matters most. Then Hayes found it, a newspaper clipping tucked into the back of the journal. The headline read, "Military K-9 program defunded. Contractor accused of embezzlement." Hayes's blood ran cold as he read the name. Colonel Marcus Venn, the same man who'd overseen Hayes's unit overseas. The same man who promised support that never came, leaving Hayes and his team stranded during a mission that cost lives. The betrayal was a thread connecting them all, Hayes, Jay, and the dogs. Venn had abandoned them, pocketed the money, and walked away clean. Hayes's hands trembled as he set the clipping down, the weight of it pressed against his ribs, old anger mixing with fresh resolve. These dogs hadn't just been forgotten, they'd been sacrificed for greed. A sound at the gate pulled him from his thoughts. Hayes walked outside, Hobbs at his side, the rest of the pack forming a protective semicircle behind him. A white envelope was pinned to the gate, fluttering in the breeze. Hayes's name was scrawled across the front in unfamiliar handwriting. He tore it open. The message was brief, typed and unsigned. "Time's almost up. Decide where your loyalty lies. Walk away now or face what's coming. You can't save them all." Hayes's jaw tightened. The threat was clear, but so was his answer. He looked at the dogs, Hobbs, Sage, Ranger, Patch, Scout, and the others. They'd waited 1,095 days for someone to fight for them. He wouldn't be another person who walked away. He crumpled the note in his fist and turned back toward the house. The pack followed without hesitation, their trust a silent vow. Hayes had 24 hours left to claim the farm, but the decision was already made. This wasn't just about land or inheritance anymore. It was about loyalty, redemption, and proving that some promises were worth keeping, no matter the cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the rain finally stopped. The sky cleared, revealing stars scattered like promises across the darkness. Hayes stood on the porch, the pack at his side, and waited. Whoever was coming, whatever was coming, they would face it together. The farmhouse lights glowed warm against the night. For the first time in 3 years, it looked like home. But in the distance, headlights appeared on the road, slow and deliberate, heading straight for the gate. The final 24 hours arrived with a chill that clung to the fields and crept beneath the farmhouse door. Hayes woke before dawn, the weight of the deadline heavy on his chest. The pack sensed attention. Hobbs, ever the sentinel, sat at the window. Sage paced the hallway. Even Scout, the youngest, was quiet, curled by the embers of the stove. Outside, the world was hushed, as if holding its breath for what would come next. Hayes moved through the morning rituals, feeding, checking water, walking the perimeter, but every action felt loaded with the uncertainty of what claiming the farm would truly mean. Was he ready to stake his future on this battered land and these scar dogs? Was he enough for them? And could they, together, become something more than the sum of their losses? He found himself drawn to the kitchen table, the battered journal open to its last, crumpled pages. The words were written in a shaky hand, the ink smudged but the meaning clear. Family is who stays. Hayes let the sentence settle in his bones. The phrase echoed in the silent house, louder than any bark or shout. He realized then that this was what he'd been searching for, not just a place, but a reason to stay, a reason to fight for something beyond himself. As he sat in the quiet, the dogs gathered around him. One by one, they approached, Sage first, pressing her graying muzzle into his palm, then Patch, with his mismatched eyes, resting his head on Hayes' knee. Ranger limped over, nudging Hayes' arm with his nose, and finally Hobbs, the alpha, sat down across from him, gaze steady and unwavering. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the wind rattling the window panes. Then, in a silent ritual of acceptance, each dog leaned in, touching Hayes in their own way, an outstretched paw, a gentle nuzzle, a warm breath on his skin. It was as if they were telling him, wordlessly, that the past was over, that trust once shattered could be rebuilt, that he was finally one of the pack. Hayes felt his eyes sting. He let the tears fall, unashamed. In that circle of fur and faith, he found a peace he hadn't known since before the betrayal, before the war, before loss had carved its name into his life. As the afternoon faded, Hayes knew there was one last thing he had to face. The locked room at the end of the hall had waited long enough. He retrieved the key from the old nail above the stove, the metal cool in his hand. The pack followed, silent and attentive, as if sensing the gravity of this final threshold. The door creaked open, and Hayes stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the slanting light. The room was a memorial and a promise, a sanctuary for memory and hope. Along the walls, photographs captured moments of service and joy, dogs in uniform beside their handlers, medals gleaming, tongues lolling in wide, happy grins. On a shelf, a row of dog tags glinted, each one etched with a name and a date, tributes to those who had given everything. But there was more. On the far wall, a corkboard overflowed with sketches, letters, and blueprints. Plans for expanding the kennels, notes about therapy programs for veterans, dreams of a place where broken soldiers and broken dogs could heal together. Jay had not just survived here, he had built a vision for a new beginning. Hayes ran a hand over the plans, his resolve hardening. This was what the farm was meant to be, a refuge, not just for the dogs, but for all who needed a home. He turned to the pack, who had followed him into the room. They gathered around him, silent and watchful, as if waiting for his decision. "I won't walk away," Hayes whispered. "Not from you, not from this." Evening crept in, and with it, the sense of final reckoning. The legal deadline loomed. Hayes gathered every scrap of proof he had assembled. The journal, Jay's letter, the photos, the plans. He set them on the kitchen table, a testament to loyalty and love. There would be no fight, no force, only the evidence of what they had built together. As darkness fell, headlights swept across the yard. The lawyer arrived, briefcase in hand, face pinched with worry. Hayes stood on the porch, the pack arrayed behind him, a living wall of trust and resolve. The lawyer hesitated, eyeing the dogs, then met Hayes' gaze. "Do you have what you need to make your claim?" Hayes nodded, handing over the documents. "This farm isn't just land. It's a promise. These dogs, this pack, they're my family. And I'm not leaving." The lawyer reviewed the papers, the journal, the photographs of the memorial. He nodded, his expression softening. "You've done more than enough, Mr. Caldwell. The farm is yours." Relief washed over Hayes, but it was more than that, a sense of belonging, of having finally found his mission. The pack pressed close, tails wagging, eyes bright with understanding. They had chosen him, and he had chosen them. Night passed in quiet celebration. Hayes sat by the fire, surrounded by the pack, reading aloud from the journal. The words were a benediction, a bridge between past and future. The dogs listened, their bodies relaxed, their trust complete. As the first light of dawn crested the horizon, Hayes stepped onto the porch. The fields glowed gold, the sky washed clean by the night's rain. The pack joined him, shoulder to shoulder, facing the new day together. For the first time, Hayes didn't feel like a visitor or a caretaker. He felt like a leader, a protector, and, most of all, a member of a family that had chosen to stay. Sunrise broke over the land, bathing the farmhouse in the fields in radiant light. Hayes and the pack, no longer abandoned, no longer uncertain, stepped into the morning side by side, home at last. If you enjoyed this story of loyalty and hope, don't forget to hit like and share it with fellow dog lovers. Subscribe to Loyal Paws Chronicles for more heartwarming tales where loyalty meets legend.